I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis, a mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Yeah, everybody buzzing about HoopSpeak Live.
Hey, welcome to HoopSpeak Live. I'm your host, Beckley Mason. Today we have a Valentine's edition brought to you by the super romantic Jamal Crawford, who tweeted today, fellas, I know it's Valentine's Day, but you better make sure that restaurant tonight has a TV. LOL, Heat OKC, Clips Lakers, the last 2 games before the All-Star break, which is where Zach Harper is today, so we don't have him. We don't have Ethan either, but we have a very special guest host today. Tom Haberstroh is going to be hanging out with us, and our guest, I guess, is Kevin Pelton. Tom, how are you doing? I like your LeBron hair.
Oh, that's really harsh. I've got these, got the receding hairline here. I was thinking about the other day of asking LeBron James, like, he gets to wear a headband to work, but I don't have a headband. I can't wear a headband to work. I guess I could, but it wouldn't really make sense. I don't sweat, so, or at least on the job. So, Beckley, if you had a receding hairline like this guy, how would you hide it at your workspace?
Well, I think luckily for both of us, we work alone, so there's not a lot of judgment for the visual appearance. I haven't worn pants inside in months. But I will say one of the looks is the kind of like that golfer hat. I don't know what they're called. Like it's like you can wear the white guy Kangol basically.
Yes.
You know, Jordan's gone with that look. LL Cool J, our buddy Jared Wade rocks those. So that might be the way to go. But I say you just keep it proud. It looks distinguished.
Okay, fine. I'll buy that. But it is fun. I'm 27. He's 28, and we're both going bald. He's actually okay. He's actually okay with it. He cracks jokes about it all the time. So this is my way of attacking this affliction that I have, my receding hairline. But anyway, let's get to basketball. This is really boring for the guys that are watching.
I don't know. I think they're actually all just asking you to call out these
Let's stop talking about this, please.
along with my haircut, it looked like I returned from war in 1970 with like these Army Edition glasses. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. They do have lenses though, so you know, not quite Westbrookian.
NBA segue.
All right.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Yeah, let's talk about LeBron actually on the court. So I've been lucky enough to be going up to ESPN and helping out on this show Coast to Coast. And the last time I was there, Antonio Davis was, you know, in the pitch meeting, and he was talking about watching LeBron. And what's so amazing to him, he said, is the passes he'll make, the way he contorts his body and throws against his momentum and throws these bullets that are super accurate. And what he was saying was that when he throws that skip pass on the move where he jumps, twists, and fires it, what it does is it cuts out one of the passes to get the ball to that spot, which disrupts, you know, the whole defense is built on, okay, we have to make him throw that first pass before it gets to the corner. You know, that's what the Bulls do so well. You know, have you talked to LeBron about that at all?
Well, he just says that like the other day I asked him, you're so comfortable with the offense at this point. Do you even have to look at Ray Allen or Shane Battier when you pass it to him, or do you just know you have a second nature, just a sixth sense that they're going to be where they are? And he's like, no, I don't even need to look at him. So when he's driving the lane and he does this like scoop pass, almost like around his defender and over the top of the defense, and it hits Mario Chalmers or Shane Battier right on the money, it's really hard. I've struggled with this. It's really hard to articulate how incredible that is because no one else can do that. And he hits Mario Chalmers on the money every time. And he's like, I don't even need to see him. I just know that he's going to be there. And he pointed to 2 years ago. He's like, there's no way I make that pass 2 years ago because I'm just not comfortable in my surroundings. I'm not comfortable playing next to Dwayne Wade. And this just speaks to the fact that LeBron James in this edition of the Miami Heat, he's like, it's all second nature. He knows where everyone's going to be at any time. So it's one of those things that it's really hard to appreciate when you write about it. It's really hard to articulate it, but that's one of his. Every time I watch him play, I'm like, he is the best point guard on the floor.
You know what it's kind of like is when you go to a MLB game for the first time and you get to sit, if you get to sit real close and you see how far the third baseman whips the ball, and you're like, on TV, like you just don't really get that he is throwing it into a box this big from so far, and you see him up close. You know, it's astounding. And what you're describing is also what a player who's having a really great year is going through. That's Tony Parker, where every time LeBron or Parker make a move into the lane, they intuitively know all their options. And so really they're not creating in the sense that we think of improvisation. There's a set number of things that can happen, right? And they just pressure the defense, force the defense to tell them what they can do, and then do it. And it's like unlocking a puzzle.
Well,
it's truly amazing.
You know what's a commonality between those two guys is they're shooting like 55% from the floor. And it just goes to show that, like, how are you supposed to guard Tony Parker? You can't. I mean, if you throw bodies at him, he's going to make you pay because he's memorized the system in San Antonio. He knows exactly where to go. But if you only go one body on him, he's just going to go right by and score. I mean, it's insane what these two guys are doing out on the court. We haven't seen – like, John Stockton is the last time I've seen a guy like Tony Parker shoot this well and still drop like 7-8 assists a night. Stockton was obviously, doing double digits, but it's incredible what these two guys are doing, and it's all because you have to pick your poison with them. If you throw two bodies on them, they're going to make you pay. So
yeah, and they're kind of like these the epitome of a modern offensive player, right? Or like a very current offensive player has to be able to manipulate the back line of the defense in certain ways. And that changes how an individual impacts the game. I want to bring this up because I want to talk about your Jordan piece and what he, the kind of his statistical profile. We may never see anything like that again because the role of the offensive player now is not just to score, not just to dominate his one-on-one matchup, but to manipulate so much else of the court.
Well, I think David Thorpe said it on point today, is that defense is more than ever right now. They're geared to take away the first option of a superstar. So LeBron James they're trying to take LeBron James's first, second, third, fourth option, but they don't know what that option is. Like, at this point, they don't know what his go-to move is. He can go left, he can go right, he can throw a scoop pass to Shane Battier in the corner, or he can just, he had a play against the Lakers where he had the ball in the left corner, and Ron Artest was shading him towards the middle, and LeBron went left baseline anyway and just blew right by him. So even if you want to take away anything from LeBron James, he is going to go the other. I mean, he's going to just counter it. And at this point, with his post moves, his passing, he's shooting 56% from the floor. He's having assist rates like Steve Nash, Calderon. Like, he is a 3-point assist guy like Calderon and Nash, but he's a paint and size threat like Shaquille O'Neal. He is a blend of the two, and we've never seen anything like this before. It's why I think the Michael Jordan comparisons fall short. It's why I think the Magic Johnson comparisons fall short, because he's just his own player. We've never seen anything like him. And as much as I'd like to say we could make those comparisons between LeBron and Jordan too much, I mean, it feels like we always do this every week. We have a new discussion about the two. But right now, it's a sign of respect that he's the only guy that I can point to that has a chance. I mean, Kevin Durant, I think, has a chance as well. But even to come close to Michael Jordan. And the thing is, they're dealing with the same exact things right now. Michael Jordan has dealt with the same exact things LeBron dealt right now, which is, I don't know if he can win the big one. I don't know if he's able to be a great winner when he's a ball hog. All this stuff that we said about LeBron all these years, Michael Jordan got that too. And if you don't believe me, go read the Jordan rules, because it lays it out pretty thick, that Michael Jordan was not this automatic, just relentless winner that we just think of right now. He is not that golden god that we we think of him now, he was a fragile, flawed player in many people's eyes. So that was the main thing in my piece yesterday was there's still a lot to this story. And Michael Jordan was facing a lot of the same things that LeBron James did last year. And I think LeBron is just getting started, which is downright frightening.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that because, well, two things. I agree with you. I think that what's special about both of them and what links them both is that they both, the way that they play, not just their success, but the actual style of their play is perfect for their era and defines it. And really, for whatever player and whatever generation, that's all you can ask. We have a good question here from a spectator, which Ethan Richardson, which is how much could LeBron score if he wanted, just focusing on points? And I want to also put this in your brain as you answer this question. Doesn't it look to you like LeBron is coasting for 80% of a lot of these games?
Okay, the first thing, a great question. I asked this to Spoelstra a few weeks ago, and Spoelstra just flat out said, well, realistically, I think he could score 37 points per game, no doubt in my mind. And he said that so matter-of-factly, like it's not even a question he could score 37. So it's almost like in his mind, he's like, if he really tried, he could probably drop 40 a night. And the reason why I say that is he is so consumed by setting up teammates. Like this is what separates him from a lot of the stars is like if he sees an open guy, he's going to pass it. And some people, like before he won a title, that was his weakness, that was his flaw. But now that he's won a title, we're like embracing that and saying you can't guard the guy because if you double him up, he's going to hit the open guy. And LeBron will flat out say he doesn't think that he could shoot 30 times a game. He just doesn't think he's capable of it because he's so
to pass it.
What's that?
It's a moral imperative to pass it.
Yeah, like he literally does not think it's possible for him to turn away from open players and try to score every time down the court. So I think he could do 37. I think 40 might be pushing it, but it's just insane because right now I think he is at 80%. He's not even trying all the way because I think he knows that he wants to save his energy for the playoffs. He knows what it takes now.
Yeah, and of course, Jordan, I think his peak scoring year was 38 and change, something like that. All right, let's get to our guest, who friend of the program from ESPN Insider, your running mate in the per diem column, Kevin Pelton.
What's up, guys? It's
My
good to
man.
finally do this. Every time we got to get something with Sean on the person of interest. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Kevin. So I want to jump right into it. You've been writing a lot about the trade deadline, about trade columns. One of the guys who everyone's talking about is Josh Smith. I am a unabashed Josh Smith apologist. I forgive him his flaws and enjoy his weaknesses or his strengths. Ugh. But where do you stand on him and sort of what his value is?
Yeah, I saw that tweet from you last night about that, and I think I'm right there on the Josh Smith bandwagon with you because I understand how frustrating it is, and I think to watch him 82 nights a year and have your success or failure of your team be dependent on him, it's hard for me to imagine. But at the same time, when you kind of step back and look at what is the impact that he has statistically, it's tremendously positive, not just in terms of his individual stats with the way he racks up blocks and steals and rebounds, but then it also shows up in terms of plus minus. So if all these frustrating things and jumpers are hurting the Hawks, then we don't really see that in the plus minus where you would expect it to show up.
Yeah, he is. It's one of my theory on this is that taking those bad shots and missing them so badly is it's like a very obvious and glaring thing visually. But you have to keep in mind that he's only taking really like 4 bad shots a game or like missing 4 bad shots a game. Like it's not that many in the scope of the game. So
yeah, but they're
all
so
the little
disheartening. Like they're so. He had this one against Dallas the other night where I forget who it was, but he had a 7-footer on him. Or it was it Dallas? I'm not sure. And he just took like off the dribble like the worst shot ever, and it hit the side of the backboard. It was like so deflating that I can't imagine what it's like for teammates who know it's going to happen, and yet you can't do anything about it because he's Josh Smith. You can't say anything to him. KP, I got an idea here. Is this the Spurs test that like any player who's thought of like as a supremely talented but couldn't do anything, like isn't a winner, I don't know. But if you say the word Spurs, like you're like, oh man, like Josh Smith on the Spurs, like, oh yeah, the Spurs could actually make him into like an MVP. Like I think Josh Smith on the Spurs is terrifying because I think you're right. Like he can be put into like a really good player on the right system and the right team.
Well, I think the Spurs are kind of like the basketball version of the Phoenix Suns training staff. Like you can send them whatever the worst reclamation project there is, and they're going to turn it into something good. I think is our viewpoint at this point. Which is, well, I'm disappointed that Andre Blatch didn't end up there. I was kind of rooting for that, but
Avery Johnson
Mike Prada had
on the Spurs.
Yeah. Mike Prada had a good point on Twitter that the way that he kind of holds the ball and deliberates would not be very good for their offense. But if you could get him making those kind of instant decisions and not ball stopping, then, if anyone's going to do it, it's San Antonio.
Where do you think he's going to go?
Right.
I don't know. Philadelphia was an interesting one that Chad Ford threw out yesterday. That wasn't a team that I would have thought of, especially since they have kind of a Josh Smithy kind of guy in Thaddeus Young.
Mm-hmm. Another guy that I love watching. Okay, interesting basketball value question. Who is a more valuable player, OJ Mayo or JJ Redick?
Just off the top of my head, I don't know. That's a tough one because they're both very similar.
You're literally searching on the top of your head. You just looked up. You're like, okay. I would probably go ahead.
I guess I would say Redick because I feel like he's done it more consistently, whereas Mayo was just not that good of a player in Memphis the last couple of years. I think that's the tiebreaker.
I like that.
Tom,
I'm on board. Beckley, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that you guys, what you both seem to be pointing to is that Mayo is not as adept at being effective when he has to be very complimentary. Whereas Redick, you feel like in almost any system, in almost any lineup, a guy who runs for days and shoots threes is going to be, and shoots them at a high rate, is going to be helpful. Redick, you could see him at, a lot of teams that are really good, Memphis, the Bulls are like, oh my God, if we could just get Redick, we would be so good. And, when Mayo had to kind of go to a bad team to play well, it maybe raises some questions about really how much, even when he's playing well, how much better that makes you as a team.
Although Mayo is younger, that's the argument for him. So he is, because of that, going to appear ahead of Redick tomorrow. We're doing free agent rankings in per diem, and having already seen the rankings, I know that Mayo is ahead.
I would say.
All right, cool. We've got to.
Go ahead, Becca.
No, go ahead. Just go right ahead.
I don't know. I just think that JJ Redick gets it. I think he's played for winning teams and he's come off the bench for winning teams. I just think I think the risk is much lower with JJ Redick than with OJ Mayo. That's my take. I feel like a much solid choice. I don't think there are as many questions surrounding JJ Redick, at least from people who watch him pretty regularly. I know a lot of people think that JJ Redick isn't like a multi-dimensional player, but if you've been watching him the last couple of years, I think he's done a lot to dissuade that notion. So my pick is JJ Redick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm wary. I think Mayo's a smart guy and a smart player. I think that in the right system training, he can be really helpful. I think it's really close depending on what your team needs. If you need a guy to bring the ball up the court in the second unit and shoot a lot, then you might want Mayo. We got an audience question here for Kevin. There's been a lot of discussion surrounding the MVP race, LeBron, Durant, Melo, CP3. But who's the defensive player of the year so far in your estimation?
That's a good one. Tough question this year where it seems kind of wide open. I would say from watching the games that my take has been, and this is a bit of a homer pick admittedly, but Roy Hibbert has been tremendous defensively. Everyone focuses on how much he's struggled offensively, but he's really anchored the league's best defense. But then last week, Bradford Doolittle put together a couple of good pieces on using a variety of different statistics to rank the best perimeter defenders and the best interior defenders in the league. And he actually didn't even have Hibbert on his list, but did have David West and Jan Mahinmi from the Pacers. So, maybe there's an argument that they don't need him to anchor the defense.
Yeah, I think what was interesting also, our good buddy Josh Smith showed up there, and he's a good interior defender too. I think one thing people and let's just talk about Josh Smith some more. I think one thing that miss about him is he came in the league very skinny. He is jacked. I saw him in person in Brooklyn, and that is a beefy dude. I mean, he is a very strong guy who can play inside no problem, even though he's only 6'8", because he's got those long arms and he's very strong.
Yeah, that's why I like him much more as a power forward. So some of the teams that are talking about trading him and making him a small forward, I'm not as sure about that.
One thing I know, Kevin, you've looked at it too, is the Sport View data actually has some interesting things to say about defensive value. And in particular, Roy Hibbert looks very, very good in defensive metrics from Sport View. Another guy who looks really good, someone I see on a daily basis, is LeBron James. I think he, on shots with LeBron James guarding, the opponent scores 29% or shoots 29% when LeBron James is guarding them. It's a really small sample size, but it's one of those things you can't really quantify what LeBron James does because he guards anyone on the floor. So I've struggled with this for years, Kevin. I don't know if I've asked you this, but have you ever tried to measure defensive versatility? Is that something we can do?
I mean, I think to the extent that it shows up in plus minus, it's probably tough to put a figure on that.
Yeah.
One thing about LeBron, and you said it's a small sample, like guys don't take shots against LeBron, and that's one thing I find really interesting. Is like it's kind of like being a shutdown corner. It's like he only had one interception all season, but they only threw on him, once a game. Like they just never went to him, and I think that's another thing about LeBron is, you can only defend the shots that they take, and a lot of defensive value comes in that negative space, and quantifying that and even observing that can be really tricky sometimes.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Dean Oliver struggled with. If you go back to Basketball on Paper, he introduces a system of a defensive box score where you chart field goals against, free throws against, et cetera, so on and so forth. And I was heavily involved with doing that. We had a project to track that in the WNBA. And it became a little difficult because how do you measure someone who – yeah, there's a box score in that book that I will take credit for. I'm putting that out there. No humble brag at all. But you struggle with if there's someone who's not involved in as many plays, but has a lower rating against them as compared to someone else who's a much bigger part of the defense but has a higher rating. How do you measure? How do you have those two? How do you explain that trade-off? And that's where I think that plus minus is really useful because of the fact that you don't have to make those assumptions; they're all built right in.
Okay, so Kevin, I got an IM from you or a G chat from you yesterday. Don't steal my column, and that was in reference to a tweet that I sent out that was along the lines of this: are there more ACL injuries happening right now, or is it just confirmation bias that we're just, now that we're more aware of it, we're noting when Rondo gets an ACL tear because of Derrick Rose, and we're noting that Nerlens Noel gets an ACL tear. And I actually got an interesting response from Tim Grover, the trainer of Wade and Kobe and Jordan, where he said players are trying to take shortcuts back to the court, and this is definitely a trend that they're not training their ligaments. They're just trying to take shortcuts to get back out on the court. What is your take? What does the data say? Because I know you've looked at this. Are there more ACL injuries now than there were in the past? Is there any way to test this?
Well, it's a little difficult. It depends sort of on the time frame you're looking at. So if your question is, are there more in 2012, 13 than there were, 3 or 4 years ago, then not really. It's just been these couple of weird runs the last couple of years where right now we've had 3 ACL tears in a month with Lou Williams, Rondo, Barbosa, and not even counting Nerlens Noel. And then we had that last year, obviously, in the playoffs with Shumpert and Derrick Rose and Baron Davis. But if you're talking about are there more now than there were, say, in the 1990s, there is some evidence for that in terms of the database that I have. The question is, I don't know if there are some guys missing from that database in the 90s that it's not as complete because we didn't have as good information then, or whether there were actually less injuries. But there are theories that, I think that a lot of people think what Tim Grover thinks. The other theory is that shoemakers have gotten so good at preventing ankle sprains that it puts a lot of that torque and that pressure on the knee instead. And so you're marginally more likely to have an ACL tear. Now, I mean, I don't want to exaggerate the effect of this. We're talking about, maybe 2 torn ACLs out of 450 players in the league per year. But as far as the confirmation effect, I think the other thing that plays into it is there wasn't a really good player that tore their ACL for a long time there until Rubio, you could say, last year, and then Derrick Rose, and then Rondo and Noel this year. These are much better players than the guys that were tearing their ACLs previously. So that's part of why we're hearing more, and I think that is a bit of confirmation bias.
Definitely. Well, thanks a lot, Kevin. This was awesome. We gotta move on and wrap up here, but thanks for dropping by. And this was nice to share. Feel like I was sharing the per diem experience here. I like that.
Do you have one tomorrow?
Yeah, the free agent rankings for summer of 2013.
All right, nice little plug there. Free agent rankings for 2000 at the end of the season. All right.
Yep.
That's gonna be good.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for having me. Look forward to seeing you guys in person at Sloan in a couple of weeks here.
Oh yeah.
All right.
We'll see you, KP.
See ya.
Yeah, I think that the question that Kevin raised about shoes is really interesting to me. I mean, you can see the way that shoes are moving towards the low-cut shoe that Kobe wears, that provides more ankle mobility, which takes some of the strain off of the knee. I wonder, at some point, are we going to? And there's also the issue of shoes provide padding that allows players to run and move in certain ways that is hard on their knees. And I wonder in the future, these Vibram 5-finger shoes and the like that encourage you to run properly and to take stress off your knees. Are we going to be playing in Vibram 5-finger basketball shoes? Are NBA players going to do that if they can get them to the point where it doesn't hurt? Because part of the issue is, right, if you're wearing that shoe that allows you to that maybe puts your knee at risk, maybe that also allows you to cut in certain ways that you wouldn't without those shoes. And would a player be willing to sacrifice sort of superhuman functionality based on the technology of the shoe for health reasons?
Yeah, it's amazing because I always feel like our medical competence is so much higher than it was 20 years ago, and yet we're dealing with what it seems like bigger injuries and more devastating injuries. And it reminds me of baseball, where a lot of pitchers are blowing out their elbows more than they did in the past because they've been focusing on their shoulder a little bit too much, and they're overcompensating. So it's a similar thing with the knee and the ankle, is that, I think there's a compensation effect where the elbow is being more vulnerable because your shoulder is a lot stronger and can do more things. And we're just seeing it across all sports. Seems like there's a lot more devastating injuries, but we'll see if it's just confirmation effect. So, Dagger?
Well, no, first, we got a second. I want to follow this up because it's an interesting question, right? You wear this shoe to allow you to your body to do extra things on the court. Similar a little bit to this Hedo thing with putting into your body to allow your body to do extra things on the court or in training. Obviously, athletes are looking for edges all the time. We don't know exactly why Hedo happened, and he went to Turkey, it got in his bloodstream. We don't know how it happened, but what do you make of
so
this
many drugs.
And in the NBA?
Well, I covered baseball for a little while in my previous sports writing lifetime, and it reminded me of Alex Sanchez, this no home run, just all stolen base, speedy guy in AAA, bounce back between the majors and AAA, who got hit with steroids, got caught. And everyone's like, I can't believe it. Why would this guy take steroids? And the same thing with Hedo is people are like, oh, like people were made really funny jokes about the fact that Hedo needed, PEDs to sit on the bench and do nothing. But all these guys, think about it. Like Chris Bosh, in no way am I suggesting Chris Bosh should PEDs. Promise, not suggesting that. But think about how if you're sitting on the couch watching the playoffs, your team play against the Indiana Pacers, and you just tore your ab muscle, and you're just sitting on the couch and you're totally detached from the team, how devastating that must be, where you play all season long, pour your heart out into the season, and an injury takes that all away. I mean, we can't even relate to that in our jobs, I don't think, because none of it is reliant on physical. Yeah, and so I don't think that it's really hard for us to relate to Hedo Turkoglu or Alex Sanchez or these guys who are taking performance-enhancing drugs who aren't even playing. It's just crazy. They're taking these shortcuts, so to speak, like Tim Grover mentioned, is that they want to get out on the floor and they'll do anything to do that. PEDs, I don't think is a matter of getting strong. I think it's just getting back out on the court. And that's what people are missing with basketball. I totally disagree with the notion that basketball players couldn't benefit from PEDs. Totally disagree with that.
Yeah. All right, we do have to wrap up here. This was really awesome. Let's do our Dagger Smash noted. And I have my dagger. My dagger is for Rudy Gay, who, by all accounts, great dude, a teammate that people are really liking in Toronto. He's shooting 38% and taking 20 shots a game. But he's hit 2 big ones, and as I wrote today on HoopSpeak, these have allowed him to he's been a hero in Toronto. He's literally saved 2 games. But when you take that many shots and you miss that many shots, sometimes you're also putting your team in position to need that hero ball at the end. So here's hoping that Rudy and Toronto figure out ways to get him more efficient looks and less pull-ups, and maybe don't get blown by Iman Shumpert last night.
Before I get to my smash, I will know that Daryl Morey, the GM of the Rockets, once said that the best clutch player is a guy who avoids clutch situations, not the one who wins them. So that goes to your point that if he wasn't shooting 38%, maybe he wouldn't need those clutch shots to save the game. So my smash, I don't know what I'm smashing here. Maybe smashing the idea of the All-Star game as is, because the other day Shane Battier came up with this brilliant idea I wanted to throw out there. In order to make the All-Star game more fun, more competitive, and just downright more awesome, have all the All-Star bonus money that the players get, pool it together, put it in a pot, put it next to the court, and winner take all. So East versus West, whoever wins that game gets all the money. Can you imagine how much more fun that would be? I know that for 1,000 reasons, namely the one big one, that this is pretty much accepted gambling, that this probably wouldn't happen. But right now, I can't see a better idea to fix the All-Star game than that one. Kudos to Shane Battier, once again with another brilliant idea. That is my smash.
Easy for him to say. He's not playing in the game.
Yeah,
He's not
yeah. What's up, James?
I'd like to note 2 things. The first thing is that I love Shane Battier's idea. I think that's brilliant. The second thing is actually going to be in response to what Beckley said about Rudy Gay. It's easy to say that hero ball sucks and it's inefficient, or it is inefficient. But when you're in the building, that last game against New Orleans, the entire crowd was chanting Rudy Gay's name with the ball in his hand as the time was running down, and he came through and he hit it. And you know what? It's pretty fun. Hero ball is fun. That's my note.
The hero ball is a blast. It is the best. That's why everyone's on board with it, because you have an emotional connection to it. It's fantastic. It just doesn't work very well in a lot of times. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone who watched. Thanks to Kevin Pelton, Peep, and James with the note and the production, and Tom, my gracious co-host. Take it easy, buddy.
I taught my bird to whistle like a referee. I can make a free throw when I'm down on one knee. I've been a fan of basketball since I was 5. Now I am a fan of HoopSpeak Live. Hilarious analysis nemesis, a mystifying trope. An angel with a cudgel breaking bubbles of soap. Like honeybees buzzing around a hive. Everybody buzzing about HoopSpeak Live.